conditions initially appeared to be an improvement over the penitentiary in Lewisburg, but now it seems his living conditions may indeed be much worse. For example, Leonard still isn't being allowed visitors. Family members have to reply to be put on Leonard's visitors list. Even the attorneys, for the first time, have to be put on his visitors list. The attorneys have another level of approval to navigate as well, but are finding it difficult to contact prison officials to make all the necessary arrangements. It took one attorney over 1 month to gain access to his client. Leonard is being isolated as never before. In addition, Leonard isn't being allowed to monitor his blood sugar, even though he has diabetes. He has told us the chaplain won't allow supplies needed for native ceremonies to enter the prison. Leonard also isn't being allowed to paint. Leonard should be placed in a unit with other older prisoners, but Coleman has Leonard listed as being 57 years of age, when in fact he is 67 years old. All of Leonard's prison records over these many years clearly indicate his correct date of birth. Leonard currently doesn't have access to phone or email. He has to pay for his services, but he doesn't have any access to his commissary account, which is a disciplinary measure taken by the USP Lewisburg that has carried over to Coleman. And I'd like to add that in history of Native people here, before we became Americans, and citizens in 1926, is that they would send people like Geronimo and other people to Florida. And sometimes that was the last place, the light of day they ever saw. Some people never saw their homeland again. So in that, I'm reading into everything from what's going on down at Wall Street, to the U.S. Capitol, to Coleman Hill, to the prison system, to the system called democracy, to the system called capitalism. I'm reading denial and hearing denial within the language that we use today. And if it is supposed to be permanent, then occupy is not the word to use, because occupy is a military term. Occupy is a temporary term. You see, I just came 2 weeks ago from Auschwitz in Birkenau with 2 Lakota elders, and we sat with Palestinians, Israelis, Jewish people, American Jewish people, and Americans, and Germans, and Polish, gay and lesbian, and gypsies, Roma, and Rwandans, and South Africans. And we sat, and we understood the peoples that were working with denial and reconciliation. We sat and listened to how they were dealing with guilt. In that circle, the only ones that were really choked up were Americans. The rest of the people that have gone through genocide were looking west, and they were looking at this country called America to start their reconciliation with the people here, with the native people here first and foremost. And they knew more about native people in those countries than Americans do here. It was appalling, and so glad that I did not want to come back to this country. Imagine that, a native person not wanting to come back to his own country, but because my heart and my family and my DNA is from this country, I came back here. And I knew that the one thing that I had to do was look at the denial Americans, all Americans who want a piece of the pie about housing and jobs and running water and education and anything that piece of pie that they can get from the American dynasty called democracy, called capitalism. And that occupy word is just another coming of the Bush-Obama era. They're allowing you to occupy. and to think you and give you that illusion, because they're getting ready to employ more of the security forces. They're getting you prepared. All the prisons that they're setting up across this land are preparing for you. And it's going to happen. But the one thing that is the most dangerous thing is what I'm not hearing, the first and foremost in Wall Street or any of the other occupations going on in this country and in the world, especially in this country called Turtle Island. One thing I'm not hearing is Mother Earth. We need to put Mother Earth first and foremost. Then you know where indigenous peoples have always stood in fighting for you, in fighting for that tree, that water, that land, that sky. We are honoring by fighting and struggling and standing for Mother Earth. She hasn't gone anywhere. Most of you say feminism is coming, the feminine energy is coming back. And when I presented that to a Lakota elder, she says, what are they talking about? What are they standing on? Mother Earth has always been here. That's because they have not been aware and paid attention to her. Now, those occupations and occupiers, we've been waiting for you for 500 years. Now, welcome. Because those banks and those multinational corporations and that so-called 1%, they are getting all of their wealth and riches. By the way, Ame in Latin feminine form is the love of, and Rica is wealth and riches. America is ones who love wealth and riches. So this is why I never want to be called a Native American. I am Native. We are older than this. Our thinking process is still here. Old as that tree, older than that tree, older than this land. This is who we are as Native people. And we're still here. We're not telling you to physically remove yourself. We're talking about the mind and spirit. Put that first and foremost, because when you start thinking indigenous, as the prophecy says, you've been eating our food, our ancestors, from this soil. Now the DNA is in you. Now you're waking up. Now it's time. The other 1%, which Native people are, less than 1% of this total population on this land are Native people. We are the most dangerous because we are standing for Earth. Now just think how that movement would be rather than looking for jobs or whatnot, because all of those jobs and wealth that you're fighting to have and keep in that system, well, that comes from Mother Earth. The exploitation of Mother Earth. Now that's dangerous to that 1%. They don't want you to go there. They just want you to protest in those little blocks in the cities and talk about housing and all these things. And as Native people from South Dakota that I am, we're looking at the people complaining. We're looking at 15 people per household. No running, if any running water is contaminated. We have the highest rates of electricity in the United States. The poorest people, poorest counties in the United States. And we're still telling you that if you pay attention to Mother Earth, then things will start cleaning itself up, regardless. And most of us that grown up in the cities, we have to readjust our mindset to a different type of thinking, because all we see in the city is human and pets. We don't see the sky. We don't see the movements of Earth. We complain about Earth. When the Eastern Seaboard languages first heard the language of English and French and other languages, they heard that it was a language of want. They always wanted something because they lacked whatever it was over there. Then they figured it out that they spoke of a lack of language. They used a lacking of language. And when I read the Wall Street documents that they're putting out, it's speaking of lacking of something. Americans are not satisfied. Native people are not satisfied, only because we are not taking care of our original instructions, taking care of Mother Earth. So there is a denial going on here. Now, all of you may want and still want a piece of the American pie, but you have to remember who owns the bakery.